Hi everyone, Christine Harrington here with Eternal Life Plan. And let's start out with the sign of cross. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. And I don't think I've ever shared this story, but I had two great aunts that were nuns, and they always said crossing, doing the sign of cross was prayer, so always cross yourself. And today I am really thrilled to have our special guest on, Christine Niles from Church Militant. Hi, Christine.
Hello, Christine.
Yes, I know.
I don't know if I've ever been interviewed by another Christine before, so. But yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I want to tell you all a little bit about Christine Niles because I discovered some things about her that I didn't know. And that is Christine was born in Saigon, Vietnam. 1 year before it fell to the communists. And she's lived in France and the United States. But here's something I bet most people don't know about you, Christine, and that is that you have a law degree from Notre Dame University, and you also have a degree from Oxford University. So she is a senior producer, and you all know who Christine Niles is, an investigative reporter at Church Militant. And we're really, really happy to have you on, Christine, to talk about your latest spotlight, which is to counterfeit caramel. And I know just on social media, there has been a lot of hoopla over this spotlight that you did. And I want to ask you a question. Since the airing of your spotlight investigation, has any more victims come forward with their story after they saw your report?
Well, there was a victim from the youth ranch that's affiliated with the Wyoming monastery. She's one of the lead plaintiffs. As I mentioned in the spotlight, a multi-million-dollar lawsuit was filed in federal court against two youth ranches. One is Trinity Teen Solutions, and the other is Triangle Cross. Also named in that lawsuit was the Wyoming monks and the prior, Father Daniel Mary. What is the connection? Father Daniel Mary, his real name is Father Daniel Schneider. His parents own Triangle Cross Youth Ranch, and his sister owns Trinity Teen Solutions Youth Ranch. So this entire family is basically being sued for forced labor, racketeering, abuse, all sorts of things. Now, the court dismissed the lawsuit claims against Father Daniel Mary and against the monastery because there wasn't enough evidence showing that he deliberately took part in the scheme of forced labor. What he would do is he would go to his parents and say, hey, Dad, can you lend me a couple of the boys working at your ranch so they can go do construction on the monastery? So that's what he would do on a regular basis. And so, of course, the plaintiffs in the case are extremely disappointed that that part was dismissed from the lawsuit. They still believe that the prior and the monastery are guilty. They very much believe so. They just weren't able to prove enough of a nexus between that. But the lawsuit is still going forward against his parents. His parents have a very long track record of running these very questionable youth ranches, filled with all sorts of problems, abuse, neglect, injury, horrific things. For instance, one of the plaintiffs who was at Father Schneider's parents' ranch said that they weren't given enough food. He was forced to subsist on a diet of insects because he was so hungry. Kids were allowed to work on heavy-duty machinery without proper training or proper gear. There were injuries. Anyway, what's interesting too is that the original youth ranch that his parents ran was called Mount Carmel Youth Ranch.
Oh, really?
Which is very interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
So there are some people who are now saying that Father Daniel Mary Schneider is basically running his monastery the way his parents ran their youth ranches. That's what some people are saying.
the parallel that you make in the spotlight really does show that that is the case. And why wouldn't he, Christine? That's how he
It's
was
what he
taught.
grew up with. It's what
That's
he
how
knew.
he grew up. Exactly. So why wouldn't he? One of the other things, just so the viewers know, we are talking about the makers of Mystic Monk coffee that is sold not only in the Catholic community, but in the secular community too. And a lot of people haven't made that connection yet, but if you watch the spotlight, and I encourage you to watch this spotlight, it unfolds this story that Christine unfolds in her brilliant investigative reporting, how this all ties together.
The monks work 11 to 12 hours a day and relegate prayer to 1 hour, at most 1.5, often rushing through it.
I send my son to a Carmelite monastery and he stops praying the rosary. Something's wrong.
Now, one of the things I had a question for you about with the coffee side of the business. How did they grow it so fast? Because that really took off fast in that community.
It did. And you know, what's really interesting is after my spotlight aired, I was contacted by a Carmelite nun. She'd been a Carmelite nun for 20 years. She actually knew the prior Father Daniel Mary before he ever came to Wyoming to establish that monastery. And his history is actually really interesting. He used to belong to the actual Carmelite order. He decided to break off and start his own independent community. This is something that most people don't realize.
And
the Wyoming
Christine,
Carmelite.
Let me stop you right there. Go over, because you and I had an email discussion about this. Will you tell the viewers, because this is so key, what is the difference between the Carmelite order and this non-religious order that has been established in this Wyoming monastery?
Right. So they call themselves the Wyoming Carmelite monks. They portray themselves on their website as Carmelite monks. They even refer to themselves as religious. This is false. They're not real Carmelites. They are not religious. We have a letter from the bishop acknowledging this fact. They are not religious. What they are in canon law is a public association of the faithful. They do have the approval of their local bishop. They were founded with the approval of their local bishop. They're a public association of the faithful, but they are not part of the actual Carmelite order worldwide, which consists of the ancient observance and also the discalced Carmelites, which are stricter. Those are really the only two actual authentic religious communities with papal approval. The Wyoming monks are not that at all. And so they're not actually religious monks.
And that's an important distinction for people to know. And the letter you got from the Carmelite nun kind of works through this whole scenario about them being non-religious. Can you, I'm sorry, I cut you off, but can you go into that story a little more?
Sure. I encourage everyone to please go read Sister Anne's letter to the Bishop of Cheyenne, Bishop Beegler, in 2019. This was long before Augustine ever came out with his accusations. This was before he ever even entered the monastery. But much of what she wrote corroborates what Augustine saw and experienced, because he's been being attacked right now. There are people out there saying, oh, he's just lying. He's just one person. First of all, as I presented in the spotlight, there's a second novice that backs him up in writing. You could see his name is Richard Minson. He was there. He saw many of the same things. So he backed him up in writing. That was sent to the bishop. But as far as Sister Anne, she goes through the entire history of Father Daniel Mary, how he started the Wyoming Carmelites, not Carmelites, the so-called Carmelites. And this is very interesting.
It was a 4-page letter, wasn't it, Christine? Because I read every word of it.
But as far as the start of Mystic Monk Coffee, according to her, the bishop at the time, Rickon, started to have some real problems. He started to see some serious problems with Father Daniel Mary and the monastery. And so at one point, he actually forbade them to do any fundraising in his diocese. And according to Sister Anne, that is how they launched Mystic Monk Coffee, was because their bishop banned them from doing any fundraising in their diocese. So they had to figure out a way to make money.
Okay.
Therefore, voila, Mystic Monk Coffee.
They became an enterprise.
Yeah.
Okay. Where can people read Sister Anne's letter?
It is directly beneath the spotlight. So,
okay, so it's on Church Militant's
correct.
site. Okay.
There's a link at churchmilitant.com. If you find Spotlight Counterfeit Carmel, all the links are there. You can read Augustine's 49-page dossier, which he sent to the bishop. It's very detailed. You could read the former novice Richard Minson's endorsement of Augustine's letter. You could read Sister Anne's letter, and then you could also read Bishop Beegler's letter confirming his canonical investigation and also confirming that there were concerns and that he has ordered them to implement certain changes. Now, he didn't detail what those changes were. We asked him, we never got a response from him. But it does confirm there was an investigation and that there were concerns that were found and changes needed to be made. Among some of those concerns, all right, one of the most shocking was monks stripping down naked in front of one another with the priest, the novice master who was in charge of the novices, a priest in authority over the novices, stripping down naked, in a communal area, communal sort of shower area before they would enter into the shower stalls and shower off, come out naked, rub themselves down naked. It was incredibly.
The other shocking part was him giving spiritual direction in his underwear. There were at least 3 instances that Augustine himself witnessed.
Even more bizarre, Father Simon Mary would conduct spiritual direction in his underwear.
I open the door, and as I open the door, I see him sitting on his bed in these briefs, nothing else. And then across from him was one of the novices.
Another monk confirmed witnessing a similar encounter with the then novice master in his briefs. The priest in his underwear giving spiritual direction.
Yeah, no windows.
Behind closed doors.
No windows, solid wood doors. Yeah.
Do you think that that might have been a form of grooming?
Oh, I believe it, absolutely. Absolutely.
Or Richard Minson witnessed. I'm sure that there were many other times as well. But Father Simon Mary, and this is not some lowly temporary cleric. This man has been there almost from the very beginning, 2004. The monastery was founded in 2003. He's been there since 2004. He's the president of the new Mount Carmel Foundation, which has assets of more than $30 million. So this is not some lowly cleric who doesn't really know what he's doing. He's been around there for a very long time. And here he is doing spiritual direction in his underwear, not just that, in a room with a closed door and no windows.
And isn't he also studying canon law?
He's studying canon law at St. Paul's in Ottawa. Yes, he received a degree from Holy Apostles Seminary in Hartford, Connecticut. But yeah, those are some things that they witnessed. In addition to that, there was also violence. Augustine experienced violence at the hands of Brother Joseph, who apparently has a very bad temper, does not like anybody to question him even on the slightest thing. Maybe he's just under so much stress because they're just working them to death. That was something else that really bothered Augustine, was he was lied to by Father Simon Mary about the daily prayer that they would engage in. And he says what they advertise on the front of their site about the horarium, the number of hours they pray versus work and leisure, he said is a complete falsehood, completely false.
Well, if Church Militant, as busy as you all are in reporting, can pray 3 times a day, take the time out of your day. This is probably something a lot of people don't know. Viewers, Church Militant, they pray as a group 3 times a day. Mm-hmm. If they can do the Liturgy of the Hours 3 times a day, I think these monks should be able to as well. And Christine, I have something I want to read to you from social media. Okay, Christine, this is from Winston Kirk on Gab, directed to Church Militant. I was looking at joining this monastery knowing that they spend so much time working. They are building the monastery. Carmelites only have a few people unlike Benedictines. Few hands make heavy work. You can pray while you work. I'm sure once the construction is done, they will be fine. This is how you get things done fast, because the collapse when building before the collapse when building a Gothic monastery will be extraordinarily difficult. The major complaint is they take off some of their daily breviary. That isn't a deal breaker, so long as it's only temporary. Now, what's your response to that, Christine?
Where to begin? First of all, people would question the characterization that this is just temporary. The beginning of the construction of this monastery was more than a decade ago. They've been building this thing for more than a decade. It's going to take many years more because this is a mega structure. I don't know if people have seen, I mean, I show it in the spotlight.
Yes.
I mean, this is a huge French Gothic sort of cathedral structure with numerous hermit houses and a refectory, and I mean, all sorts of things. And they will be building this for many, many, many more years. And from what I understand, Father Daniel Mary is already talking about building another mega monastery in Canada, ensuring decades more constructions. This is not some temporary, oh, it's just a few months here. Okay, this is going on for years.
Plus,
also,
they have the Mystic Monk coffee that they apparently work grueling hours over that as well.
Correct. Yeah. Mystic Monk coffee is as well. That's a very, from what I understand, lucrative, but very busy business for them. It does keep them occupied all the time. As far as, dropping this bit of the breviary or not, or that, that's really unheard of in authentic religious life. You don't treat prayer as an afterthought ever in any authentic religious community, especially in an authentic Carmel. The heart of Carmelite spirituality, the heart of the Carmelite charism is prayer. It's mental prayer, it's contemplative prayer. And true, you can pray while you work. St. Teresa of Avila understood that, St. John of the Cross understood that, but they never neglected time set apart specifically devoted just to contemplative prayer and nothing else, meaning not busy working with this and not distracted with this, just prayer. That is part of any authentic Carmel. He called them Carmelites. They're not Carmelites, So, and also the fact that Augustine claimed there's false advertising. Lying is still a sin.
Yes.
You can't say, oh, we actually have a very balanced work and prayer life. We kind of do equal bit parts of each on your website, and then email young postulants saying, well, here's the horarium, and then completely have a different life when you get there. And that's what's going on here, which is why Augustine accused them of false advertising.
Do you know if they go out into parishes to recruit young men into the monastery life? Do you know if they
Well,
do
they're
that?
supposed to be cloistered, so they're not really allowed to go
Okay.
outside of the monastery. But there is if you read the website, you can see they're very, very trying very hard to get people to come there. They're extremely eager to get new recruits. And from what I understand, there's a high turnover. All these young men look at the website and it is very attractive. It's got
It's a beautiful website. Yeah.
Beautiful website, very attractive. It shows these monks and this breathtaking surroundings with the mountains and the way that they present themselves. Any young, good, devout man, discerning a religious vocation, I can absolutely understand the draw. But once they get there, it's nothing like what they imagined. One of my, someone that I know who actually visited the studio, spent some time at the studio a few years ago, at that time was actually extremely excited to enter the Wyoming Carmel. He was talking about it with everyone at the time. He was about 17. And so he's all excited. He leaves. And I just got in touch with him the other day. He saw my spotlight. He wrote me and he said, I was there for a short amount of time. I'm not sure. I think a little bit longer than Augustine. He said, and even though I didn't necessarily see the homosexual grooming that he saw, he's like, I'm glad I got out of there. And I said, why are you glad? And he said his words, it's not a monastery. It's a glorified work camp.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, there's so many different issues with this monastery. And for the life of me, I don't understand why they've kept Father Simon Mary around. He seems like he's been a major problem there. For instance, again, if you read Augustine's dossier, he says that Father Simon Mary at one point, and he saw this with his own eyes, Father Simon Mary walks in, and as a joke in front of all novices, he drops his pants down to his thigh, just showing his underwear. And he starts laughing. He's like walking in with the novices with his pants down, to, mid thigh, thinking it's all a joke and laughing. And I thought, what the hell?
Yeah,
what kind of novice
exactly.
master acts that way? Who does
A
that?
very similar thing happened to him after the novice master showered, went into his room, and this monk wanted to get spiritual direction. He said, "Oh, I'll wait outside until you're done dressing." And the novice master said, "Oh, no, come on in." And so then he started dressing himself very slowly in front of this monk as he was trying to give spiritual direction.
I know you have gotten a lot of backlash from the Radtrad groups. Prior even to the release of this report, they were
Yes.
already attacking you. And of course,
Yeah.
it hasn't stopped since the release. Why do you think, Christine, that they think it's just so hard to believe about these allegations, and just not with the mystic monks in Wyoming, but any of news about sexual abuse within their ranks, within the FSSB or the SSXP, any of them? They refuse to accept it. And I remember back in when the Boston spotlight broke, what was that year?
2002.
2002. I remember as a Catholic then, I did not want to believe it. And frankly, if my own parish priest was accused, I would not want to believe that either. But I wouldn't be blind to it. I would do my own research. Why do you think they're so opposed to that?
It is amazing. It is amazing how, just as you point out, utterly unable, a certain group of people, how unwilling they are to recognize or admit sexual abuse in their ranks. I first came across this when I started exposing SSPX abuse and corruption back in 2020. And to be honest with you, I was a bit surprised by the viciousness and the ugliness of the backlash. It was worse than anything I experienced anywhere, even among the secular left, which can be pretty darn vicious.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you, the SSPX loyalists, not all of them, that's why I'm talking about kind of a small vocal group, especially on Twitter, which seems to be the worst. Boy, were they vicious, absolutely vicious. And there just seems to be a certain sect of people, a certain, fringe group of, like you said, rad-trads. I'd like to call them mad-trads.
Okay.
Are absolutely unwilling to look at the evidence when it comes to any traditionalist clergy. In their minds, if they offer the traditional Latin Mass, they're untouchable. And there's a certain amount of idolizing of trad clergy going on. It's like, oh, he's so holy. He prays in Latin. He offers the traditional Latin Mass. There's no way that he could ever be guilty of this. And if any whistleblower comes forward, any victims, we're just going to dismiss them as liars. I have seen it again and again and again and again. It is utterly shameful. It's disgusting. And I understand now for the first time why so many whistleblowers and why so many victims are terrified of coming forward, because they're going to face this sort of vicious onslaught. Even now, Augustine is being mocked. He's being belittled. He's being dismissed as a liar. He's being told that he's just a sissy and he couldn't handle the hard work of the Carmelites. And it's like, hello, are you okay with spiritual direction in underwear? Really? Behind closed doors? You're okay with that. What about the, stripping down naked with the priest? That's suddenly okay with you? It's amazing to me, the mental gymnastics this group of people will go through to justify the most obscene, scandalous behavior simply because traditionalist clergy do it. They are abuse enablers. Absolutely. They are the reason abuse and grooming and corruption continue in some of these communities, is because all these individuals, they circle the wagon around their priest and clergy. And it's like, oh, they offer the TLM. Well, they're holy. And anybody who says anything against them, well, we're going to, completely attack them. And we're going to attack whistleblower media like Church Militant. Yeah, it's amazing. And as you know, they make it very personal. And they're more than happy to fabricate lies and sins against you to try to discredit you. As you know, people have said I've, abandoned my family, which is ridiculous. That I'm a divorced careerist who neglects her children so I could be on TV. Another outrageous falsehood that I've had an abortion, which I've never have. Not that I judge people who've, done that in the past, but that doesn't apply to me. But people have fabricated those lies. Anything they can do to try to discredit me and the work I do of exposing corruption and sex abuse. It is truly evil. It's diabolical.
Well, what I found even to taking it to the next level, Christine, being disturbed, is how they just openly lie about anybody at Church Militant.
Yes.
I mean, they just pick people and post their houses and, which I have no idea if that's their house or not, or roommates. And it's just despicable that they make it up as they go. How do I know, Eternal Life Plan viewers, that this is being made up? Because some of the specific things that they lied about, I knew for a fact was not true. And when I pointed it out, Christine, I got
viciously attacked.
Yeah. They just out and out lied. The other myth I want to clear up with everyone is this. There's this perception out there that Church Militant just picks somebody and goes after them. I know that you all don't do that. There are so many tips that come in to Church Militant. Can you address that, Christine?
Yeah, I don't go looking for these stories. These stories always come to me. Like you said, we get so many tips. There are people coming to me right now. I'm dealing with half a dozen investigations.
Wow.
And that's generally my life, is I've always got about half a dozen investigations that I'm looking into. And pretty much every single time it's a tip coming in. It's someone saying, Christine, I need you to investigate this. For instance, the story with Augustine, I never went looking for that. He came to visit our studio because of the Persecuted Seminarian Summit in July 2021. He was introduced to me and I heard his story and I was shocked. I was shocked like anybody else. I thought, Mystic Monk Coffee? I used to, I used to promote that coffee. Are you kidding me? Really? That's going on there? And so we had our interview and I did all sorts of research. And so, but that's just one example. Things come to me. Just the other day, I was on the phone with a rape victim in a certain archdiocese that I cannot yet reveal because I'm still in the middle of the investigation. But again, it was just out of the blue. He contacted me, very credible. And it's about a high-ranking cardinal who covered up his rape. And I thought, oh my goodness, unbelievable. But, like I said, there are people coming in with tips all the time saying, please look at this, please investigate this. We can't investigate everything. So we have to sort of figure out, pick and choose which ones we can, which ones are feasible, which ones have documentation and proof. And that's what we, that's what we pursue. But we are never out to get anybody. And it really bothers me too, that people think that I or Michael or any of us take glee in exposing any of this. It's heartbreaking. It breaks my heart to see this sort of evil and filth and corruption in the church. But precisely because, it's heartbreaking to me and I desire that the church, which I love, be purified and purged of this filth, that this work is so necessary. you have to expose it to the disinfectant light of day in order to get it out. And that's what we do. It's very difficult work. I know that I face backlash over it. I know that there are people always going to be criticizing me over it. That's just life. I don't look at myself as some sort of victim. The victims, are the ones who've been hurt by these clergy. The victims are young men like Augustine, who's probably lost his vocation now. This is a very devout, credible, honest, virtuous young man with a deep devotion to Our Lady and to the saints. And he went into that so-called Carmel, trusting, the prior and all these people to have his best interests at heart. And he learned something very, very different. And so now, maybe, as far as I know, I don't think he is pursuing a vocation anymore. But that story can be multiplied thousands of times around the world for men and women.
Church Militant gives a voice to the victim, because
Absolutely.
the bishops sure won't.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They will not.
Yeah. But, at the beginning of the show, I said that one of the lead plaintiffs in that Wyoming lawsuit against the monastery and the youth ranches reached out to me and said, I just want to thank you so much for your spotlight. Thank you so much for shedding light on this situation. Thank you for giving us a voice. I and the other victims are so grateful. And I've received emails and messages like that from victims of SSPX abuse and others as well. And I've got to tell you, that reminds me of why I do what I do. That completely makes up for all the vicious, online assaults and the lies and the slander and calumny. One email like that absolutely makes up for all of that. That's why I do what I do.
And you're good at it, Christine. You really are.
Thank you.
Okay, one last question. What didn't I ask that I should have asked?
Well, yeah, actually, so like I said, I'm working on about half a dozen investigations right now. I can't reveal them because all of them are confidential. But I always encourage whistleblowers and victims to reach out to me. I will treat their story respectfully, and I will also guarantee their confidentiality and anonymity. I never, ever, ever violate the trust of my sources, whoever they may be. So I do encourage people to write us at actionarm@churchmilitant.com. That's actionarm, 2 words together, no space, at churchmilitant.com.
And I'll put that in the video below in the description area. So you'll have that for your use. Even if you know somebody that has been a victim that needs help, pass it on to them as well.
Yeah. One thing I did want to address is another one of the lies that's being tossed around about Church Militant is that we are in a war against tradition. And that the reason that we're exposing some of these traditionalist clergy like the SSPX, I've written on the FSSP before with some of the recent scandals there, and now these traditionalist monks, is apparently, according to them, Church Militant is in a war against tradition. In fact, I got a very nasty email from an FSSP priest, in fact, who accused us of this. And it's a complete falsehood. It's a complete lie. Half the staff at Church Militant attend the traditional Latin Mass, including myself, who's been going there for almost 20 years. I've baptized my children in the traditional sacraments. I love the traditional Latin Mass. I've promoted it. I've defended it. So this claim that, we're in a war against tradition is absolutely false. I will just add this. I believe that we are, more so than this fringe group that's attacking us, we are the true traditionalists, because we desire the filth and the evil to be purged from the ranks of traditionalist clergy, purged from the entire church, the wider church. But any true traditionalist who loves the church, who loves the faith, who loves tradition, would want this evil to be purged from among its ranks, and they would support this. So anybody who's attacking whistleblowers, anyone who's attacking victims, dismissing these stories out of hand, as far as I'm concerned, they're fake traditionalists. They're not authentic. They're not genuine, and they have no real love for tradition or for the church.
Well, Christine, I really appreciate your time talking to us about this really important issue. And everyone, I just want to say this, you know how I end, eternal life is forever. Got a plan? The plan is Jesus and the Holy Catholic Church. Thank you, Christine. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Christine. God bless you.
Alrighty. God bless you too. Bye-bye.